Milton Justice and Patrick Qualiano will begin their summer term at the Actor Lab on June 8th. Classes will be offered in technique, script analysis, rehearsal technique, and scene study. For more information, email us at info@theactorlab.nyc. That's info@theactorlab.nyc.
There's an exercise that I did today in Bucharest, which I do in in-person technique classes that we never really get to do, obviously, in our Zoom class, where I say to everybody in the class, move your chairs to the other side of the room. And so everybody does, and it's really noisy, and it's really a nightmare, and it's really huge. And then I say, all right, move it back where you were, but do it as if you were shy. And so what we figure out from that is what is the nature of shy. And then what I ask everyone to do is to figure out what it is that they did, and not an activity, but basically what we're talking about is what we're talking about without saying it is what action are you playing? So in other words, what happens when everybody is playing shy, it's like somebody will say, um, um, I I didn't want anybody to see me. And so then you ask the question, so what did you do? And so then it becomes pull in, or make myself invisible. So, in other words, these are all actions, oddly enough, or an impulse to to get to a character by figuring out what is doable. And connected to this, of course, is when I talk about when directors give you an effect direction, where they, will say something like, I think she's a little more shy, and or and so because our tendency when somebody gives us an effect direction, I think she's angrier here. I think he's calm here. In other words, when somebody gives us an effect direction, our immediate response is to play the cliche. So as soon as somebody says, I think he's angrier here, then what we do is yell, as if that's what you always do when you're angry. But that's another discussion. Okay. So in order for you to turn it into something actable, you have to figure out what it is that you are doing, what you're playing, what action you're playing, um, what the behavior is. And we notice behavior through actions. So to pull back helps me shy to reach. In other words, in other words, we're turning a character trait or a character personality, whatever you want to call it, the spine of the character, into a playable action. And I think that really helps us because I can play an action and it opens me up more creatively. We need to translate characters out of a performance description, an effect description, and translate them into something that I can act, and I can act an action. I can act an impulse. And keeping in mind the way I say it is the way I'll do it, our tendency to analyze things removes us from acting without even knowing it. I'm looking for something a little less complicated, a little less sophisticated. Tell us what you're having trouble with, Vienna. We'll solve it.
One of the characters is a new teacher. She's like the main teacher in the classroom, and the kids are basically run over her. And the discussion that we were having yesterday is that like she's a pushover, and I felt like that wasn't super actable, and I was like, well, is she a people pleaser? Because to me, that felt more like I can do something with people pleasing as opposed to receiving, being the pushover. But she's very overwhelmed. So I keep going. What's the nature of feeling overwhelmed? What is the nature? What do I do? What do I do when I'm overwhelmed? How do I feel when I'm overwhelmed? How does my body move differently? Because they only have like a few seconds to shift into every character. So it's like, where in my shoulders does my overwhelm manifest?
Yes, yes. Um, the nature of overwhelmed. Where has anybody been overwhelmed?
When I'm trying to finish like an assignment very last minute,
Okay.
and I'm just
Okay, good. So, okay, I have the assignment. It's the last minute. So, what, so in that circumstance, what do you do? Not how do you solve it? That's totally different. But what do you do?
I kind of go into myself a lot. It's just like what do I do? What do I do? I'm just it's like the it's like things are just closing in.
Okay, good. Yes. Okay. So I go into myself, um, a possibility. Right? You say, yeah, because, and that's doable. You see what I mean? It's like I'm not having to worry about it so much physically, but what I'm worried about, but what I can do emotionally is I go into myself. And then if the physical comes out of going into myself, I am in my second country in 2 weeks, and actually my third country in 3 weeks, where I don't speak the language. The woman said something to me. She said something to me, and I assumed she said, no, we don't have fingernail clippers. And so then, I started to leave, and then she shouted something. And so I stopped. And then she pointed to another woman and who worked there and who was walking to another aisle in this store, and I started to follow her, and then the woman at the checkout counter yelled at me again, and so it was like I now have got all these people all around me that are saying things to me in Romanian, and and so for me, then I suddenly am overwhelmed. And so so in my instance, when I was getting overwhelmed, it's like I'm going to go there, and I'm going to go there, or I'm going to go there, and so it's like, um, another choice. Do you see what I mean? We shop for choices. So one choice of being overwhelmed is just like you pull in. And another choice is you want to go there, you want to go there, you want to go there. But you see what I mean? It's I'm looking at the nature of it, and I am finding in the nature of this actions. Something that I can do. And so it keeps me from having to worry about the effect, right? And Vienna, I think maybe that's better than trying to physical say, what do I do physically? Because here's my problem with all of that. My problem, and I've always had this problem with Michael Chekhov, is that when I can physicalize actions, but the problem is what I'm physicalizing is something to get to an effect. And so what I'm not doing is finding out what is going on with me, and therefore, what do I do?
And that's been one of the challenges that I have. One of the challenges I have with the director, because sometimes I can tell he's looking for a particular effect, And I'm like, okay, but I can't just play the effects because my body knows that I'm lying. And I'm like, I'm just doing something and I can't retain it. Like I can't remember what thing that I was doing without it coming from something else. But I like that if the nature of the thing is telling my body what to do, then my
Yes,
body will naturally respond to it without me
absolutely.
forcing it.
Yes, and that's my problem with that. That is my problem with the whole idea of physicalizing actions. I think it's not coming out of what's going on. But if I look at what's going on, I mean, first of all, it's very good. It's very good knowing that this character is overwhelmed, and so um, when Tony's in that circumstance, he shuts down. And when I'm in that circumstance, so you've got a couple to see it's like I start to go to one place and I start to go to the other place and I start to go to the other place. And so it's like what I'm now looking at are um, actions, you, impulses. Go there. Oh, no, go there. Go there. And it's like, and this is about fingernail clippers. Imagine what I would do in an important circumstance, like my assignment's late. And also, you're very smart to figure out what response to being overwhelmed best fits into this play. And it says, what is my play about? It is going to be so much easier for you to go from action to action to action than it is to go from physicalization to physicalization to physicalization. Often you can get it by living off your partner. I am living off of the circumstance when I have to take care of something. And then all of a sudden, like that, there's another image, which is a 4-year-old girl with her new doll. And so you immediately go a different direction. Say, Belinda, is that your new doll? And then she leaves the room, and you go absolutely back to business mode. So if you're a teacher and you're a room full of people that are all over the place, you see, then it's easy because I'm going to stop that one. No, I'll stop that. Oh no, I'm going to stop. Oh, I can't stop anybody. And so then you combine mine and Tony's, which is I give up. I'm overwhelmed and I pull in, but it's just doable. And I'm living off a partner. There's a kid over there. I don't know, that's showing his butt. There's a kid over there that and so you have one thing and then another thing and then another thing, and so you live off of those things, and then finally, it's interesting, and then it's interesting. So I give up. I think what will help you the most is not to worry so much about how do I physicalize this moment. I find I can use physicalizing for certain things, but not for actions. And only because of exactly what you just said. You were trying to figure out what your body did when it was overwhelmed. For me, it's going at it slightly backwards. It's like the physical life of the character comes out of what is going on, rather than the physical life of the character helping me play what's going on. I know I'm overwhelmed, so I have that. But then I say to myself, so what do I do when I'm overwhelmed? Two things. One, the shopping for choices. And the second thing is knowing what the play is about and what fits in better.
And it sounds like what you're saying, also is that you don't have to stick to one thing. Like it will naturally morph from one way into another way, just riding the wave of the show.
Stella's famous letter to me when she was talking about rehearsals was spontaneity needs to be the rule of rehearsals. Maria Callas, who means nothing to most of you, she said, I approach every performance as just another rehearsal, which I also think is really important because we have a tendency to set what we're doing. And then what we do from performance to performance to performance is to try to redo what we did before. The director is going to give you bad notes. What does the audience see that makes me know you're overwhelmed? And what they see is behavior. And behavior is observed through actions.